Welcome to the online training for the presidential nomination primary that will be held March 3rd, 2020. We hope this training will highlight the slight differences this election will bring. By now you might have heard a lot about this election on the news, but in case you're still wondering what is the presidential nomination primary, we'll walk through a couple of the key points. In 2016, the Minnesota legislature decided to bring this process back. It was last used 18 years ago in 1992. It's Minnesota's part in the national political party process of selecting a presidential nominee. While there are 4 major political parties now in Minnesota, only the Democratic Farmer Labor and Republican parties are participating in this election. Each party will have its own ballot at your precinct. Because of this, a voter has to declare by checking a box on the roster which party's ballot they want you to give them at the ballot table. If they don't declare, they cannot vote. In a future slide, we'll discuss resources available to you if voters have questions about declaring a party. This election brings with it the collection of an additional piece of private data, a voter's party preference. This information is private, except it will be given to the chairs of the 4 major political parties after the election. It's very important that this information is not shared anywhere else. In order to protect voters' privacy, please use the roster covers that are provided at both the Election Day registration table as well as at the roster table. All election judges will sign an agreement at the beginning of your shift, indicating that you understand that this information cannot be shared or communicated in any way outside of the polling location or even amongst election judges on Election Day. Throughout the training, we'll highlight various ways that you can keep the voter privacy at the forefront in the precinct on Election Day. You'll use the knowledge you've gained from previous election judge training and work you've done on other election days during the presidential nomination primary. The roles will not change in the polling location. However, a few things will be different. Over the next several slides, we'll highlight the changes. Overall, opening the polls on election morning will be the same. A few reminders are to make sure that the signs and sample ballots are posted near the entrance to the polling place. You'll receive 2 sets of sample ballots. One should be posted near the entrance on your sign board or in another location with the rest of your election signs, and one set should be placed at the roster table. Please ensure that there are secrecy sleeves available at the ballot table. At the beginning of the day, if you're tasked by the head or co-head judge to work the ballot table and verify how many ballot packets you've been delivered, you'll use a very similar process to any other election. You'll first confirm the total number of ballots that you received. That means you should combine the DFL ballots and the Republican ballots together and record that number. Next, you'll open the packets of each ballot style or party, count each packet, and see if it reaches 50. As usual, you'll record any discrepancies the packet does not reach 50 on the ballot tally sheet. With the ballots that you've opened to get you started for the day, 2 election judges should initial the upper left-hand corner. The setup of a polling place will look almost identical to any other election. It should be set up so that the polling place flows to ensure easy access as well as privacy for voters. It's also important that voters are not crowding the roster, EDR, or ballot tables. In order to help with line management, you might use blue tape or some other mechanism to create a line a few feet back from each of these tables. You'll also want to be sure to tape out 6 feet around your DS200 tabulator to ensure that voters have privacy while inserting their ballots into the tabulator. To ensure voter privacy, it's important that both other voters and election judges respect voter space. This means that unless a voter asks for your assistance with the DS200, that all election judges stay out of that 6-foot window. The greeter judge in this election will be an important resource for the polling location. If you're serving the greeter judge role, you should use the precinct finder and greeter list to help identify if voters are in the proper precinct. You can also use the greeter list to determine if a voter is already registered or not, if they have questions about that. If it's determined that the voter is not in the right precinct, you can use the citywide precinct finder or your cell phone and the Secretary of State's Poll Finder tool to help them find the correct polling place. You'll use the sample ballots and signs posted at the front of your polling location to help answer any further questions about this election that a voter might have. Being that first line of defense and first person to answer questions for the voter will really help move them through the rest of the polling location in a smooth manner. To help answer voters' questions, you'll have a few new resources available to you in this election. The first one is a notice to primary voters. This will appear either on your signboard or should be hung with the rest of your Election Day signs. This resource describes to voters that the presidential nomination primary is similar to the previous preference ballot or straw poll that we had in the state. It lets everybody know who is eligible to vote, and that means everybody who is eligible to vote in the state of Minnesota can participate in this election. It also discusses the major parties and the choices that they may have made at a party level and are reflected on each ballot. It also discusses the fact that the choice of major political party is private data, except that it will be released to the 4 major party chairs after the election. Another resource that will be available to you will be sample ballots. Those ballots will be posted on your signboard or with the rest of your signs and can be used as a tool to show voters what they can expect on the ballot they select. If a voter has a lot of detailed questions, you could also refer them to the head judge, who has a handout available. This handout includes information about what uncommitted means on the DFL ballot, what the write-in option means on the Republican ballot, what might happen if a candidate drops out prior to the election day, as well as the party contact information. If a voter wants further details about any of these questions or about what's going to happen next in the party process, the party is the best resource for them to get this information. All of the information that you'll need for curbside voting is located in the Greeter Judge folder. To curbside vote, voters and election judges will follow the same process as in any other election. Because it's a partisan election, you'll need 2 judges of differing parties to do this task. The voter certificate is found in the Greeter Judge folder, and this certificate is specific to the presidential nomination primary. The only thing new on this form is that it requires the voter to select the party's ballot they wish to receive. The judges assisting the curbside voter will bring in the completed voter certification form to the roster table. At the roster table, the roster judge will locate that voter on the roster and write curbside in red ink in the signature slot. They'll also then mark the major political party choice that the voter made on the certificate. The roster judge will then use a peach ballot receipt and mark R or DFL as it corresponds to their selection on the roster and the certificate. This ballot receipt will be taken to the ballot table, and the proper ballot will be issued by the ballot judge there. As the roster judge would in any other election, they should staple the certificate to the back of the roster page where curbside has just been written. The 2 curbside election judges will then finish the process by bringing the voter their ballot in a secrecy sleeve and then depositing the ballot when that's completed into the DS-200. As always, roster books are a tool for election judges to use, and a voter should never be allowed to page through it. Roster covers or signature guides, like the one on the right side of this slide, will be provided for use in the precincts on Election Day. These will be used at both the roster and the Election Day registration tables. These guides should be used with each and every voter and will help ensure a voter's privacy is protected. It will cover not only challenges, as we've covered in the past with labels, but will also cover the voter's party preference selection. Remember to keep space between the roster table and the line of other voters. You could do this using a piece of blue tape on the floor to create a line, or some other mechanism that works best for your individual precinct. When a voter approaches you, as always, ask them for their name. Find their name and position the signature guide portion over the voter's name. The voter will then sign the roster and select the party, either R or DFL, by checking a box. You'll then turn the roster book back towards you, look at the selected party, and mark the corresponding party on the voter receipt. Then confirm your selection with the voter by saying, "Please confirm this is the party you chose." We never want to identify the party out loud. A voter cannot receive a ballot without declaring a party. And if they have any questions about this, you can direct them to posted signs that explain that this is a requirement in state law for this particular election. If a voter should wish to file a complaint, your head or co-head judge can offer them a state election law complaint form, which is located in the head judge book. If you are assigned to work at the EDR table or Election Day registration on Election Day, here are a few reminders. A greeter list should be at the EDR table for your use all day long. Please double check that the voter is really not registered before asking a voter to complete an EDR. There are many different mechanisms which could allow a voter to have their registration updated in the state. Before the voter fills out the EDR form, please ask them for their proof of residence. Then use the precinct finder to confirm that the address where they're registering is really in the precinct that you are working. Another reminder is to ensure that questions 1 and 2 on the form are checked and that they both say yes. This confirms that the voter is a U.S. citizen and that they are 18 years of age on Election Day. Finally, if you or the voter have any questions about what forms are accepted documentation for proof of residence, use the green sheet that should be also on your table. Once you and the voter have completed the Election Day registration form, the voter should fill out the Election Day registration roster. Because other voters might have filled out this roster ahead of the voter you're working with at that time, you should use the roster cover. The roster cover for the EDR table includes a column with headers to allow for easy completion. The voter should sign the roster and then select the party for which ballot they would like to receive. Just as is done at the roster table, the EDR roster judge will mark the ballot receipt and ask the voter to please confirm that this is the party you chose before directing them to the ballot table. Next, we'll move on to the discussion of the roles of the ballot and demonstration judge. Oftentimes, these two roles are combined together in a precinct. As we discussed earlier in the review of opening the polls, ballots from both parties are recorded on the same ballot tally sheet. You'll open ballot packets as needed throughout the day, count, record on the tally sheet, and initial the ballots, just as you would in any other election. After the polls close, unused ballots can be boxed up together. The two parties' ballots should be kept in 2 piles on the ballot table. If more than one judge is handing out ballots, consider using 2 tables or 2 ends of the same table to create privacy for each voter. You will also want to ask voters to queue a few feet back from the table. When a voter approaches the table, you'll take their ballot receipt, and based on the party that is checked, hand the voter that party's ballot. You'll say again, "Please confirm this is the party you selected." Once the voter confirms that, they can be directed to the demonstration judge, or if you are serving as both, you can give them the instructions for voting. Once the instructions have been given, you'll place the ballot receipt face down on the spindle. As in any other election, the duty of the demonstration judge is to instruct the voter how to mark the ballot. Should the voter have any further questions, they can be directed to signs on the sign board. Have many secrecy covers available for use. However, you should never proactively put a ballot in the secrecy cover for the voter. If a voter wishes to spoil their ballot, they should return to the ballot table and can receive only another ballot of the same party that they initially requested. So if they requested an R ballot, they could receive an additional R ballot to correct any mistakes they made. If they selected a DFL ballot, they would only be able to have a DFL ballot as a replacement. Spoiled ballots will then be placed into the spoiled ballot envelope. The polls will close at 8 p.m. The process to close the polls and balance your precinct is the same as in any other election. You'll start by counting all voted ballots. This means you don't have to separate them by party. Once you've counted them and counted your write-ins, all voted ballots can go into the same transfer case. Any unused ballots can be boxed up together. You'll balance the voted ballot to the number on the machine, as well as the number of signatures on your registered and EDR rosters. If you are not balanced at this stage, please call Washington County Elections and we can help you through a few troubleshooting steps. The equipment judge or your head judge will then hit close polls on the DS200 and print the results tapes. All election judges working when the tapes print should sign them. One tape will print that will have the zeros tape and the results tape attached to each other, and a second tape will print that you can post publicly in your polling location. Finally, you'll complete the statistics worksheet and be ready to close up the polls. The head judge might assign you to help with other duties beyond what is listed here. That might include packing up other portions of the polling location or completing other paperwork. The polls will close at 8 p.m. The process to close the polls and balance your precinct is the same as in any other election. You'll start by counting all voted ballots. This means you don't have to separate them by party. Once you've counted them and counted your write-ins, all voted ballots can go into the same transfer case. Any unused ballots can be boxed up together. You'll balance the voted ballot to the number on the machine, as well as the number of signatures on your registered and EDR rosters. If you are not balanced at this stage, please call Washington County Elections and we can help you through a few trouble steps. The equipment judge or your head judge will then hit close polls on the DS200 and print the results tapes. All election judges working when the tapes print should sign them. One tape will print that will have the zeros tape and the results tape attached to each other, and a second tape will print that you can post publicly in your polling location. Finally, you'll complete the statistics worksheet and be ready to close up the polls. The head judge might assign you to help with other duties beyond what is listed here. That might include packing up other portions of the polling location or completing other paperwork. Before showing you a video of this whole process and what it will look like, we want to run through a few frequently asked questions. The first question being, when can a voter change their mind about which party's ballot they want to receive? Before receiving a ballot, a voter can change their mind. The roster judge would then cross off the incorrect party in red pen, and the voter would mark the correct party in blue or black ink, whichever colored pens are available at your precinct. You'll want to document this on the incident log so it's clear why there's red pen marks and items crossed off. After receiving a ballot, the voter cannot change their mind on which party's ballot they want to receive. If they don't wish to vote the ballot they received, and they will tell you their name, meaning they're still in the polling location, you should cross off the voter's signature on the roster in red pen. You should also document this occurrence on the incident log. If a voter does not disclose their name or simply leaves, document this on the incident log as well, and place any ballot they left behind in the spoiled ballot envelope. If a voter expresses to you an interest in changing their party selection before or after receiving a ballot, please call over the head judge or the co-head judge to assist you with this transaction. If there are additional questions that remain after bringing the head judge or co-head judge into the conversation, feel free to call Washington County Elections and we can further help you work through this issue. As mentioned in the close of polls slide, there will be write-ins that you'll need to count. As you're counting ballots, you should separate any write-in that is filled in a Republican ballot. Only Republican ballots have a write-in spot. There will be a list of declared candidates in the roster packet on Election Day morning. This list of declared candidates are the only candidates that you need to count and tally. Please do so and include that tally sheet in the materials returned to Washington County on election night. We also wanted to give a reminder about challengers. If a challenger is present in the polling location, please direct them to the head or the co-head judge. challengers' only role in the polling location is to challenge a voter's eligibility to register and vote. They cannot challenge party choice. They also are not allowed to make a list of voters on paper, on an electronic device, or by taking a photo of voters in the polling location. If you are a head or co-head judge and have more questions about a challenger in your polling location, please call Washington County Elections and we would be happy to assist. The voter will approach the roster table and give the roster judge their name. The judge will then page through and find the correct voter and place the signature guide so just that voter's information is visible. They'll spin the book around and the voter will sign, agreeing to the oath. They'll also check either the R or DFL box in indicating which party's ballot they would like. The roster judge will then take the book back and mark the ballot receipt with the corresponding party that the voter just marked on the roster. They will then ask the voter to confirm that that is the party they chose. The voter will then be directed to the ballot table where they'll present their ballot receipt, and the ballot judge will select the R or DFL ballot according to the ballot receipt. The judge will confirm the ballot is the correct one and give instructions on how to complete the ballot. Thank you for serving as an election judge in the presidential nomination primary. Further resources are located in the description box below of this video if you are watching it on YouTube. If you are an election judge hired by Washington County, you have already been emailed these resources. If you have additional questions, feel free to contact us at the phone number or email listed on the screen. Thank you again.